Hello everybody, my name is Augustus Farrell, and I'm the president of the Borgia City Council. I would first like to say thank you to everyone for attending this year's Veterans Day Assembly, and a special thank you to all the veterans who served and risked their lives for our freedoms. If you're able to, please stand as the Washington VFW Color Guard posts the colors.
Honor guard, halt! Left face. Post color. Order, arm. National anthem.
Please continue to stand and welcome Borgia Senior Lieutenant Commander William Regal, Executive Officer, NJROTC, as he says the Pledge of Allegiance.
Honor guard, bridge that arm.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor guard, order, arm. Parade, rough. Right face. Port arm. Forward mark. Column right. Column right. Column halt. Right face. Order arm. Take your seats.
Now I invite our school chaplain, Father Trust, to the podium for a prayer.
Join me in prayer in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God the Father, creator of mankind and author of peace, as we are ever mindful of the cost paid for the liberty we possess, we ask you to bless the members of our armed forces. Give them courage, hope, and strength. May they ever experience your gentle love and compassionate healing. Be their power and protector, leading them from darkness to light. And we thank you for the gift of those who have fought for us, especially those here with us today. To you be all glory, honor, and praise, now and forever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Washington High School Navy Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps award-winning exhibition drill team will now be performing. Cadet Commander Caden Bannerman, drill deck is yours.
Precinct up. Good morning, sir. Washington High School Navy Junior Reserve Officer Training. All exhibition drill team, Washington, Missouri. Respectfully requesting permission to utilize your drill area, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you to the NJROTC. We'd now like to take a moment to honor our veterans and current members of the Armed Forces, as well as those who are no longer with us. These brave men and women have given so much through their service, sacrifice, and love for our country. They're the reason we can come together today and enjoy the freedoms we sometimes take for granted. If you're able to, please stand or give a wave to the crowd when your name is called so we can show our appreciation. If you're related to or know any of the veterans personally, feel free to stand when your name is called as well. Let's give one round of applause. Sandra Langenberg, Dale Edwards, Glinda Newby, Michael Roberts, George Garcilaso, Army, John Branson, Wayne Prince, Benny Kirkpatrick, Charlie Van Leer, Rita Gow, Kenneth Schweppe, Frank Robb, Sylvester F. Boland, Anthony Pyrick, Sylvester F. Boland, Charles L. Raymond Jr., Bob Sturkoff, Owen Sturkoff, Steve Leahy, Joseph H. Wilk, Jack Harden, Larry J. Ballman, Anthony P. Ballman, Terry Letts, Rich Ennis, Mike Lee, Scott Hayes, Luke Kleekamp, Richard Lee Bergeroff, Vince Bergeroff, Larry Frick, Charlie Godehouse, Don Peters, Robert P. Klebel, Al Worley, Norbert Strickhoff, Otmar Jasper, Andy Klein, Tony Baldwin, Gary Ruffcar, Cora Riegel, Robert E. Garber, Wyatt Lowe, George Imke, Ray Overmark, Robert Zurich, Gordon Sickman, Richard Just, Ott Jasper, Judy Bergman, Rick DeShirlia, and John Strong. Marines, John E. Simmons, Jay Rue, Harry Kessler, Carl Schroer, Brian Warren, Rick DeShirlia, Robert Trower, George Garcilaso, Larry Fuller, Dennis Voss, and Max Keeler. Navy, Joe Schrader, my grandpa Robert Pounds, Tyler John Hutchings, Alan Mullen, and Carrie Schweiker. Were there any veterans or current members that we might have missed? Okay, I don't see anything. On behalf of the Borgia community, we want to thank you sincerely for your service. Now, I would like to continue by recognizing those veterans who have passed. Although they are no longer with us, their courage, dedication, and sacrifice continue to inspire our community. We honor their memory today and every day, and we are deeply grateful for the freedoms their service has helped persevere. Let us take a moment of silence to remember them as I read their names, for their bravery, their service, and the legacy they leave behind. In memory of George Van Leer, Virgil L. Cassidy, Don Unnerstall, Walter Volkerding, Elroy Rufkar, Al Murray, Roland Simmons, Bob E. Garber, Floyd Leahy, Vernon Leahy, James Leahy, Dick Bina, Stephen Spiros, Robert Huxell, David L. Boland, Bill Sullentrop, Clarence Hampkin, Francis Peters, Benny E. Lee Fieser, Eldon Wells, and Glenn Fortmeyer. Now, it is my honor and privilege to introduce local community member Rocky Sickman. Rodney, or Rocky Sickman, graduated from Washington High School in Washington, Missouri in 1976 and immediately entered the U.S. Marine Corps. In 1979, just 28 days into his tour of duty at the American Embassy in Tehran, Iran, Sickman became a player in one of the most terrifying events in U.S. history. On November 4th, 1979, after months of turmoil, marked by the return of exiled Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, the American Embassy in Tehran was overran by militants and its military detail and employees taken captive. Sergeant Rocky Sickman, then just 22 years old, was one of 65 Americans taken hostage. Sickman remained a hostage for 444 days before being released on January 20th, 1981, following 14 months of diplomacy by President Jimmy Carter. 3 months later, Sickman was honorably discharged after 6 years in the U.S. Marine Corps and received several accolades during his service, including the Congressional Gold Medal, Prisoner of War Medal, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, Award of Valor, Good Conduct Medal, and more. Following the military, he began working in the private sector for KMOX Radio in St. Louis, Missouri, and then for Anheuser-Busch InBev. He spent the next 34 years with the company. His final role was U.S. National Director for Military and Industry Affairs until his retirement in July of 2016. In August of 2016, Sickman's military and professional experience, coupled with his passion for our armed forces, led him to pursue an opportunity with his favorite nonprofit organization, Folds of Honor. In his role, Sickman advocates nationwide for Folds of Honor and works with individuals and corporations to help provide funds for educational scholarships to the spouses and children of fallen or disabled military service members and first responders. Sickman and his wife of 44 years, Jill, have 3 children. Hannah married to Matt Worley with a granddaughter Layla and grandson Brad. Chelsea married to Kaylin Freeze with a grandson Woodson and granddaughter Ruby, and son Spencer married to Olivia with a granddaughter Phil. Please help me to welcome Mr. Rocky Sickman.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, what an honor it is to be here with you. I'd like to say thank you to the VFW detachment here in ROTC, drill team, excellent job. The students, I salute you for, I understand you are responsible for putting this on, so that's a lot of responsibility, but to me it is telling me that you get what that American flag represents. I'd like to thank the teachers for teaching those individuals on what the responsibility is of that flag, and of course the parents, because without the parents and the grandparents that we have in the audience, we would not have this passed, and especially the veterans. I mean, you are the individuals that survived, sacrificed your life to provide us what freedom is all about. My only regret here today, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm not going to be able to hear your story. Because my story is just one of many. I mean, you all have stories. And ladies and gentlemen, you need to make sure that you get a video of these stories of each one of these individuals that served our country. Because once we're gone, those stories go with us. So, as you heard Augustus say, I work for an organization called Folds of Honor. It's an organization that provides scholarships, 73,000 scholarships since 2007. That's about $340 million worth of scholarships that we provide to children and spouses of fallen and disabled military and first responders. And like I said, 73,000 scholarships. That means there's 73,000 stories, ladies and gentlemen, and my story starts 49 years ago. I know I look completely different from what I did back then. I also, before I go, I want to wish the Marines that are a couple here in the house happy birthday. It was 250th birthday on Monday. So that right there, ladies and gentlemen, 49 years ago, I was raised in a small town of Krakow, Missouri. A small town, and back then I always said there was a population of 50, and that was dogs and cats included. But ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you, it was the best time of my life. You should never forget where you come from. Because my parents taught me 3 things: love of family, love of faith, and love of country. And those 3 things helped me through the darkest hours. I was deployed to Asia. I was with 3-4 Lima Company, and then brought back to the States, where I then joined up with 2-8 in Camp Geiger, North Carolina. I went to Europe. I then came back. I wanted to get into Marine Security Guard School. And I have to be honest also, folks, when I left, high school, I was the sharpest tool in the shed. I mean, I did not have my head put on straight. I can tell you the Marine Corps, they screwed my head on straight after I got in. And so I saluted it. It's one of those duties. It was a responsibility, Marine Security Guard duty. There's 270 American embassies around the world. Any of you have ever been to an American embassy? Yes, yeah. If you've been there, you know that it's guarded by the host government of wherever that embassy is. The Marines provide the internal security of that Marine host. November 4th, 1979, I got there October 7th, 1979. Very excited. It's 10,000 miles away from home. Beautiful country, beautiful history. And it was one of those things that I had to, get accustomed to everything that was going on at that point in time. Although 2 weeks prior to November 4th, ladies and gentlemen, there were demonstrations going on in the country of Iran because the country wanted this individual, the Shah of Iran, to come back and stand trial because he had fled the country in January of 1979. He was allowed into the United States 2 weeks prior to November 4th. And the Islamic Republic of Iran wanted this person to come back. There had been 20,000 Americans in the country of Iran as of January of 1979. When I got there, October 7th, there was 66 Americans. It was November 4th, like I said, 10 o'clock that morning. And you see the top picture right here. I'm walking into the motor pool gate about 30 yards away. And there have been demonstrations, like I said, every day, 2 weeks prior, and they were chanting death to America. But the host was there providing protection. Although, except for this morning, what's really interesting, they took a picture of something, ladies and gentlemen, that they probably regret taking. To anybody, and I will give you $1,000 if you can pinpoint a security guard that's outside the American Embassy on the morning of November 4th. There are none. The security left. As a Marine security guard, I knew that all my equipment was at the chantry. I see them come over the wall. I run back to the chantry. I get in. Billy Gallegos is closing the forward steel door. We close it. I go back, and for those military guys and girls here, you won't believe that my weapon in 1979 was a Snub-Nose 38 and sawed-off shotgun to guard the American Embassy. I can tell you that speaking of American embassies all over the world now, and they are no longer ill-equipped as what they were in 1979. I can tell you, I was assigned to the front door, and my adrenaline, it was pumping. I was putting rounds into my pistol, and I can tell you, I was dropping a couple rounds here and there. As I closed the chamber, put in my holster, I then got my shotgun and started putting shells into the chamber. And about this time, the door is being pounded on, and the plaster is falling from around the door frame. Because the whole government was not coming to provide protection. Everybody and their brother were coming to count on and chanting death to America, which means death to the United States. And so, all of a sudden in the basement, the second thing I will never forget, the first thing is that there was no security that morning on November 4th. The second thing I will never forget, I will tell every American until I go in the grave, I go downstairs to Billy Gallegos and call for reinforcement. He's downstairs, he says they've gotten in. I run downstairs with all my gas mask. I get down, Billy's to the right, I'm to the left, and Billy points down the corridor of the basement. Around the corner come 4 Iranian women in black chadors, and behind them are 4, not more than 4, the Iranian men pushing the women forward, knowing that the Marines did not shoot unarmed innocent women. We're being screamed at, don't fire, don't retaliate, help is on the way. We get to the steps that I just came down, tear gas is popped, they all flee the embassy. We get all of our gear from posts when we go up to the very top of the embassy. We can't go any further than this door. We barricade ourselves against that door, and at this point in time, ladies and gentlemen, 7 Marines held that American embassy for 4 hours, waiting for the host government the Islamic Republic of Iran, to come to provide protection. They never showed us. They'd start bringing Americans that had been taken outside, and they brought them up to the very top of the floor of the embassy. And on the other side of the door, they're putting pistols to their head, and they're basically saying, hey, they got a gun in my head. If you don't open the door, they're going to shoot. At this point in time, President Carter's on the horn with the State Department folks, and he wants to know what's going on. Obviously, they report back that, there is no help. Help is nowhere around. He said it's going to be 18 hours before we get anybody to you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, they have reaction. But back in 1979, nothing like this had ever happened before. So what happens then is 66 Americans were stripped their freedom, their dignity, and their pride, known as the Iran hostage crisis. November 4th. Ladies and gentlemen, what you see right here is what we live like for the next 30 plus days, tied to a chair, unless it was an interrogation where you allowed us to. And I don't know about you, but going through a difficult time, I didn't feel like eating. I probably didn't eat in 30 days. You would maybe nibble, but you just didn't have an appetite because you were concerned on if you were going to live or die, morning, noon, and night. What you said right here, you're sitting there tied to a chair. The only thing I could do, folks, was go back to a happy time of growing up in a small town of I remember during the winter time of snow day, I remember waking up and smelling the pancakes that my mother was making in the kitchen. And I would smell it, I would come in, and sure enough, she had a skillet. She had 4 pancakes on that skillet. And I could sit there and I could watch the bubbles. And I'm dreaming this. I'm not really dreaming, I'm living in this chair as I sat, because I had to go back to a happy time. After I ate those pancakes, that I had to pry off the top of the shirt, and pour the shirt over top, I ate it. And then I went sleigh riding down Abel's Hill, because I had to go back to a happy time. I remember then getting into high school, we won state championship. I understand you guys have playoffs tomorrow night. Guess what? 1973, we won state championship. 1973, I was underclassman, special team. 1974, we second runners up. 75, I was the captain, myself, and 2 Seabreds, and we were 6-1. But those games, folks, I relived all those activities because, again, I had no idea what was going to happen next. We were dispersed November 4th, 46 years ago. I am living my first of 444 days. Thanksgiving's coming up. Folks, as I sat tied to that chair, I thought back how my mother was putting the turkey into the oven and how she was making caramel rolls with the icing over top and the walnuts over top. And I would sit there and I would eat that. And then, of course, all the relatives would be coming in. I wasn't able to enjoy that because I was tied to a chair 10,000 miles away from home. And the only thing the Islamic Republic of Iran wanted was the Shah of Iran to come back. Ayatollah Khomeini, he was the leader. He blessed it. And that is the day that the war on terrorism started, ladies and gentlemen, when he blessed it. The embassy was being stripped from top to bottom because we were spied. In fact, our American embassy to this day, ladies and gentlemen, is used as a museum to teach young Iranians how we are bad people. The Iranian embassy in Washington, D.C., we manicure the grass, we paint the wood, we clean the carpets, the air conditioner is running so that if they ever come back into town, our embassy is not like that. Yellow ribbons. Ladies and gentlemen, as I sat tied to that chair for over 30-some days, it's 1979, and I'm sitting there thinking back. 1975 was when the Vietnam veterans came home. How many Vietnam veterans do we have in the audience? Yeah. These individuals, when they came home, they were spit on. Nobody cared about them. And now I am 10,000 miles away from home in 1979, thinking, if nobody cared about those thousands of military people, who's going to think about me 10,000 miles away from home? I know my little brother was hoping I never came home because he was thinking stereo. So, you know, it's one of those things, I sat there thinking, but little did I realize, here they were putting yellow ribbons around everything to try to get, 60-some people home from being held hostage. We were put into conditions of where they wanted you to make derogatory statements, ladies and gentlemen. And I can tell you, one of these individuals in this picture right here, he sang like a bird. He sang so loud, he put 7 of his State Department colleagues in solitary confinement for 444 days. And what did he get? He got goodies. Seriously, when you think that this doesn't happen, I'm here to tell you, it did happen. That guy is now serving in prison, which he should be. The Canadians had no idea. We're a 23-acre compound, folks, and we were on the front side. The Visa building was on the back side. How many of you have ever seen the movie Argo? Right? Argo is a great movie about these 6 individuals. We had no idea that they had fled the morning of November 4th, 1979. They broke off the flights in the Visa building. They then went to the Canadian Embassy, and there they sat for over 80 days. And Tony Mendez, a CIA operative, went in disguised as a Canadian film director, and he basically took them all out. So great movie, interesting, but I had no idea that this was happening back at that time. President Carter, ladies and gentlemen, President Carter was being pressured to make a move. All of us that we hear is that the hostages are going to be put on trial by the hanging judge. And ladies and gentlemen, in that country, if you do something wrong, they hang you in the middle of the street. And so President Carter heard the hostages were going to be put on trial. My charge was drug trafficking. And President Carter said, I can't have a hostage be hung. He then attempted the most daring operation in American history, known as Operation Eagle Claw. 2 C-130s started from Cairo, Egypt, and folks, I could be here all day telling you stories, but I can't do that because where we had to go, how much time do we have? 20 minutes, okay. Yeah, I cannot tell you all the stories out of 444 days, but I can tell you that there was a group of 100 guys that had the guts to try. They made it 3/4 of the way into the country of Iran. Iran had no idea that 2 C-130s and 8 CH-53 helicopters were en route. The issue with helicopters, 2 of them had to abort their mission an hour into LZ-1 because they had intook so much sand in their motors. So they needed 6 helicopters, ladies and gentlemen, to do the operation. At 2 o'clock in the morning, on the morning of April 25th, the hostages, we had no idea this was happening. We had no idea that the United States would even attempt a rescue operation for 66 people. I mean, that's nothing. So little did we realize, 6 helicopters, the last helicopter that landed had hydraulic issues. Commander on the ground radios President Carter, says, President Carter, we've got 5 helicopters. President Carter said, I sent 8 because you told me we needed 6 to execute the mission. And Colonel Beckwith said, sir, we have 5. The others had mechanical issues. President Carter aborts the mission at this point in time. At this point in time, the last CH-53 is refueled from a fuel belly in the middle of the C-130. It gets up at 2 o'clock in the morning, night vision goggles. It's the first utilization of night vision goggles these guys are flying. He becomes vertical, the pilot, and hits the C-130, killing 8 individuals. 8 great commanders, ladies and gentlemen. To me, this is what Veterans Day. Veterans Day to me is not 11/11. It's every day. Every day I wake up, ladies and gentlemen, I think of these 8 individuals that gave their life for my life. And their rescue operation attempt failed. But you know what? It's a heavy piece to have to live with that these service guys basically gave their life. We as hostages had no idea. It wasn't until the next day, or excuse me, that night of April 25th, They came into our room the evening of April 25th. At this point in time, we were locked in a room from January through January the following year. We were locked in a room. 7 times we went outside out of 444 days. 7 times. And that's 15 minutes each time. And the night of April 25th, they come bursting into the room, and weapons were drawn, and all of a sudden they handcuff us. I'm the middle guy, handcuff us, blindfold us. They take us downstairs and they put us into a vehicle. Because the Islamic Republic of Iran realized that they found charred bodies of these military, thinking that they're still coming in to rescue us. They moved all the hostages. We were at the American Embassy in Iran. By that evening at 11 o'clock, we were dispersed all throughout the country of Iran. There was no way that they were going to be able to basically find us and bring us back. It was about 3 months later, they then bring us back into Tehran, and then they put us into prison. And prison at that point in time, it was one of those even prison. Those of you who watched the news recently, it's where Israel blew up that prison, where we spent, 4 or 5 months. Ladies and gentlemen, not only were you held hostage, you were also in the middle of a neighboring war with Iran and Iraq. During the daytime, you would fly missions over top of the country of the city of Tehran, and you would hear the explosions go on. Families, how many of you have children? Raise your hand. Children? Yeah. I want you to imagine, all of a sudden you're at chicken dinner on a Sunday, and all of a sudden they come and tell you that your loved one was taken hostage. How do you deal with it for the next 444 days? How do you wake up every morning and get cleaned up and go to work and really function in your job when you know that your loved one is held hostage? Not only are you held hostage, but they have the media that's living in your yard for 444 days. I mean, how do you go on with that? I can tell you, when I came home 444 days later, my mother and father had aged. But my mother, she knew that she went to church every day and prayed. And I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, my faith, it kept me through. Love of family, love of faith, and love of country is what my parents taught me. And those 3 things kept me through. And my mother, not only did she pray a lot, but she begged a lot. She begged for all the media. That's why I guess all the media like to come out of the house before I eat. So my poor father, when he passed away 15 years ago, one of the guys that was at the funeral, he said, "Rocky, your poor dad, he'd come to work, 4 o'clock in the morning, he'd get in his truck, he was a concrete mixer driver, fill up his truck and he'd drive. And all of a sudden, they'd call Burge and say, 'Hey Burge, where are you at? We need that concrete.' He wasn't driving to the job. He was just driving because his mind was trying to focus on everything that was going on. It was huge. It was so sad. Not only on my parents, but also my brothers and sisters that had to go through that whole situation. It wasn't just the hostages, folks. It was the hostages, it was the families, and the those that basically were on that rescue mission. I just got off the phone with one of them that was on a mission on the way out. A guy, we get together every year, and we break bread and remember what happened. Second Christmas, I don't know about you folks, Thanksgiving was huge, and I relived every Thanksgiving, 2 Thanksgivings I lived in that home. 2 Christmases. I'm the second guy to the left with Big Chin, Big Nose. And here at this time, we asked the priest for last rites, because at this point in time, we had found out that the Shah of Iran had died July 27th, the day after my birthday. We found out while we were in prison, during a sports magazine, that the Shah had died. And so we're sitting there thinking, well, that was the whole reason why we're here. So, interesting, Iran needed money to pay for weapons to fight the war with Iran and Iraq. So little did we realize that the United States basically negotiated a deal January 20th, 1981, 444 days, ladies and gentlemen. They come into our room, again, we're locked in the room. Again, going to the restroom, you had to knock on the door, with a piece of paper underneath the door, they'd come blindfold you to take you to the restroom. This night, they came into our room, blindfolded us. They didn't handcuff us. They had taken our shoes from us in March of 1980, and I wore plastic open-toed sandal shoes. The pair of pants I was wearing, I had worn for over 200 days. My left cheek was completely hanging out. They were camouflage utilities. They come in, they blindfold me. Jerry Plackman puts his arm on my shoulder. Billy puts his arm on his shoulder. We walk out. Instead of going right the way we came to that, you always remember the way we came into the building. He turned left, took me down the corridor, stopped, turned me, and he opened the door. And ladies and gentlemen, I felt this cold, crisp, fresh air, because you know when you go outside at 7 times. It was snowing outside. Walked out into the snow, and I'll never forget the snow crunching through my toes. It was so cold. I can remember my mouth, opening my mouth, and the snow was falling into my mouth. And I'm crunching through, they put us onto a vehicle, drive off, and all of a sudden you make a right-hand turn, and all of a sudden you hear a sound of an airplane. Ladies and gentlemen, this is something that you would pray for. You would hope for just a second chance in life. And all of a sudden we get behind the airplane, and I didn't have glasses, and I had hearing aids, and the guard says, unblindfold. So you start to unblindfold very slowly, because you weren't allowed to. Here you are seeing people that you hadn't seen before for days. You look bad, you smell bad, and you're not wondering what's happening. And all of a sudden, they put us onto the airplane, and they start closing the door, and you turn around and say, wait, where's Bill? Where's Doug? Where's Greg? Where's Stella? Where's everybody else? And they said, no, you're the last. He said, no, there's not 66 people in it. And he said, no, the others were let go a year earlier. We had no idea that other hostages had been let go 444 days earlier, and that we were the last out of that whole ordeal. Little did we realize, folks, that the United States government unfroze $8.3 billion to release the hostages. We had no idea until after being released. I'm going to have to get going here and speed it up. Here's a picture. We went from that, I can tell you, that night, ladies and gentlemen, the last airplane story is we get to the end of the runway. It's an Algerian pilot. They had sat on that plane for 3 days waiting for us to be released. And all of a sudden, we get to the end of the runway, he's at the foot of the brake, he starts accelerating, and the plane is shaking, all of a sudden it's coming back down to an island. Pilot comes on and said, turn the runway lights off. What they wanted to do, ladies and gentlemen, was put a knife in President Carter's back one last time, as he had negotiated. We were supposed to have been released on January 17th. They waited until January 20th, the inauguration, waited until he was out of office and President Reagan was in. And for those of you that thought, well, they were scared of Reagan, what did the Islamic Republic of Iran do to our troops in Lebanon? They killed those at the American Embassy, and then they killed 240 Marines in Beirut. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, I regret that I ever pulled that trigger the morning of November 4th, 1979. I wouldn't be here, but you know, the war on terrorism would have started then. But it's something that has continued. But here's some pictures of us coming home to Germany, my first jacket, and then of course, when we were in Germany, President Carter came over to visit us. Immediately came over, not too often, the president in pajamas. And then days later, you meet President Reagan at the Oval Office, along with the little celebration. The only thing you wanted to do was get home to the small town of Krakow, Missouri. Home, Heartland, home there. That's all you wanted to do. That's what you dreamt for 440 days. How many of you remember seeing the movie Castaway? Right? Good movie. Tom Hanks, he had a locker that he used, and remember his girlfriend. I didn't have a locker, but in the top left picture there is a young girl that I had dated right before. I had spoken to her on November 3rd. I didn't get to speak to her until January 20th, 1981, and she was my guiding light. Without her, ladies and gentlemen, I would be in a gutter. Interesting, we've been now married for 44 wonderful years. But like I said, without her, she's my support. Whenever I'm down, she brings me up. But I also want you to remember those 8 individuals. Remember the 8 individuals that lost their life? Those 8 individuals, ladies and gentlemen, would never have a chance to go fishing with their son. Spencer's that tall guy up in the middle. Those 8 individuals that lost their life would never be able to walk their dog down the aisle as I have. Those 8 individuals that lost their life attempting to rescue me would never be able to hold their grandkids as I have. Those 5 grandkids. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that's why every morning I wake up, I earn each day in memory of them. And to me, that's what Veterans Day is all about, thanking them for their service. So, here's some pictures of Billy and Jerry. Jerry's no longer with us. I can tell you another long story. Him and the Marines to the bottom left. And out of the 52 hostages, there's 28 of us still living. Something in the movie Argo. I got to speak to the cast of Argo. Met Jennifer Garner, wonderful lady. But it is an Academy Award winning movie. Definitely recommend you see it. Folks of honor, like I said, folks, it is my therapeutic piece. But what I do each and every day is giving back to the military family. It is something that I do each and every day. The number 444, ladies and gentlemen, is a number that comes to me whenever I feel like I'm having a bad day. Not too long ago, I had to catch a 6:30 flight in the morning. Those of you that caught the 6:30 flight, you live way out here, you got to get really early to catch that flight. I'm running through a convenience store to get a banana, a water, and a breakfast bar. And I go up to pay, and I hold $4.44. And it's like God is always saying, Rock, are you really serious? Are you really upset by catching a 6:30 flight? He's right. There's nothing that's worse than being held hostage with 3 rifles in the back of your head at the age of 22 in a foreign country, folks, and you don't know if you're going to come home. Anybody know what 444 stands for? Angels support. To me, it's angels are on my shoulder, that number 444. So with that said, I again wanted to thank the VFW, the ROTC, the students for all that you have done and continue to do for our veterans, the teachers, the parents, and again, for all you veterans, like I said, I regret not being able to hear your story. And maybe I'll come back next year to hear one of your stories, because your story has to be told. Mine is just one of many. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, God bless America, and good luck in the championship. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sickman, for taking the time to come and speak with us today on Veterans Day, or for Veterans Day. We truly appreciate you sharing your experiences and reminding us of the courage and sacrifices shown by all of those served. Now, the taps originated as a signal to extinguish lights and end the day during the American Civil War. Today, the taps are used to honor those who have lost their lives protecting our freedoms. At this time, sophomore Kathy Bergerman and band director Mr. Scott Revel will be playing the taps. Please allow for a moment of silence for all those military men and women that have passed. ask for Will to come retire the colors. Well, thank you to everyone for your participation in the annual Borgia Veterans Day Assembly. Before we conclude, please stand and join me in giving our United States military veterans one final round of applause in gratitude for their service and sacrifice.
For joining us today. I'm Pam Poland. I'm the principal of St. Francis Borgia High School. And I did want to echo Mr. Sickman's thank you and gratitude to our student council for planning today's beautiful assembly. I think that our veterans are such a positive example of living for something else, right? And that's what we're all called to do, for living for something greater than just ourselves. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. I also want to thank our sound technicians and our beautiful Borgia band for the music today. Thank you so much for that. Veterans, I'm going to have you just stay put for a second, okay? I know our student council has a small gift of thanks for you, and I'll dismiss our students now, so it's probably safer if you just stay where you are. If you want to have a seat, that's okay. If I could have that section of students, you guys can dismiss. And then this section right here that